Okay, let's wind the clock back. Way back. We're talking 400 years ago to 17th century England to meet someone who was, in so many ways, a man from the future. A guy who saw our modern world long, long before it ever existed. But that kind of raises a big question, right? How can we possibly get a real, first-hand look into a world from that long ago? How do you get past the history books and actually feel what it was like? The sights, the sounds, the worries of a completely different era? Well, the answer is you find someone who was there and who had the incredible foresight to write it all down. So let's meet John Evelyn. He was an English writer, a passionate gardener, and most importantly for us, a diarist who left behind an absolutely amazing record of his life and times.
Now, Evelyn wasn't just some bystander. He was deeply woven into the very fabric of his society. Born into a wealthy family, educated at Oxford, he became a really influential member of the Royal Society. You know, that pioneering group dedicated to scientific discovery. He was a writer, a gardener, a public servant, basically a true Renaissance man living through a century of massive, massive change.
And it's actually through his diary, one of his most personal projects, that we get this incredibly vivid picture of such a turbulent time.
Yeah, this was no simple Dear Diary. It's one of the most important historical documents from that entire period. It's like a time machine, giving us a direct window into the politics, the social scene, and all the cultural shifts happening in 17th century England.
And wow, what a time to be alive and writing. He started his diary in 1640 and didn't stop until he died in 1706. And in between, he documented everything. The monarchy being restored, the absolutely terrifying Great Plague sweeping through London, and then, just 1 year later, the Great Fire that completely devastated the city. He saw it all, and he wrote it all down for us.
But here's where Evelyn's story gets even more fascinating. His legacy goes way beyond his diary. His thinking was so modern, especially when it came to the environment. He was basically preaching what you might call a gospel of trees. So back in 1664, he published this absolutely groundbreaking book called Silva. And this wasn't just a book about how pretty trees are. Nope. It was a powerful argument for their central role in society, pushing for everything from sustainable forestry to growing timber on a massive scale for the nation. The main idea of his argument was pretty simple. Trees are absolutely vital for both practical reasons and for their beauty. He was a huge advocate for reforestation, and he actually warned people about the long-term dangers of just chopping down all the forests. This all came from his core belief that nature and society are deeply, deeply connected.
I mean, just stop and think about that for a second. This is an era where most people saw nature as just a resource to be used up endlessly. And here's John Evelyn writing about sustainability and the consequences of deforestation. It makes him a true pioneer of modern environmental thinking.
And believe it or not, his curiosity didn't stop with diaries and trees. This was a man with an incredible range of passions. He was a perfect example of the intellectual spirit of his time. His passions were all over the map. He wrote a book called Ascetaria, which was all about salads and eating fresh produce. As a key guy in the Royal Society, he was a huge champion for scientific experiments. He even wrote a whole detailed guide on garden design, all about creating beautiful, harmonious landscapes. So why are we talking about a 17th century gardener and diarist today? Well, it's because his legacy of insight and inspiration is honestly more relevant now than ever before.
You see, John Evelyn wasn't just one thing. You can't put him in a simple box. He was this complex, multifaceted person who just fully embraced the world around him, championing both the beauty of nature and the pursuit of science. For him, those two things weren't at odds. They went hand in hand. And that, right there, is why his work is still so important. His diaries are absolutely essential for historians. His passion for plants and gardens still inspires gardeners. And his visionary ideas about the environment, they're still being studied by conservationists all over the world. Which really leaves us with one final thought to chew on. In our age, with all our urgent environmental challenges, what can we learn from the ideas of a man who, 4 centuries ago, was already asking all the right questions about our relationship with this planet? What can his vision teach us about building a truly sustainable future?